The Golden State Warriors remain in a holding pattern when it comes to a big move. Excuse me, I'm getting choked up when we start the show. Lauri Markkanen's name has obviously been tied to the Golden State Warriors. We've talked on this show about other players who could be added in a trade in case the Lauri thing falls through. Folks, I'm here to shed some confidence, some positivity, some reassurance. We're in good hands. The Warriors have a phenomenal owner. Feces rolls from the top, folks. And the top of the mountain with the Warriors is in good hands. I'm going to get into what that means exactly. I'm going to explain why I'm feeling great about the Warriors in terms of whether or not it's going to be Lauri Markkanen or someone comparable, although I'm feeling very good about Lauri. And I'm also going to put the spotlight on Mike Dunleavy Jr. because even though when it comes to drafting, he's been phenomenal, the personnel decisions with free agency, with trades, leaves a lot to be desired. And that includes this current offseason, where if by some chance the team doesn't make a move, this is a disaster. I'm going to get into what I mean with all this stuff. Let's get into it. Let's have some fun. It's a special Saturday edition of the Golden Days. Let's do it. Here we go. And thanks for joining the party.
That is it for us today, and we will leave you with I can't do it. We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. And things suck. Woo! Let's go.
In a minute, I'ma need a sentimental man or woman to pump me up. Come on and break me off. Cause I get what I want and I like what I
see. Saturday edition. The heat wave's over. Starting our own. Hey now. That's the Olympics. Go Dogs! Hello, everybody. I'm Cyrus Saatsaz. You can follow me on Threads and Instagram at Dog Wild. I'm over on Elon's platform. My handle there is Surf Journalist, but outside of plugging the show, not doing much there. I think that platform's a cesspool. So you can find me over on Threads or IG, the lesser of two evils. Again, at Dog Wild. The handle's super easy. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's right there. You can easily find me. I try to get back to you if you reach out. Good afternoon, everybody. And thank you for joining the program. I'm trying to make money here, first of all, folks. And I say that for two reasons. One, if you want to get your chats or if you want your comments highlighted, donate some money, make those things a super chat, and I'll absolutely highlight it. I also published a link, by the way, to in the chat for anyone who wants to actually come on the show today. The invite's open. Jump on in. You'll sit in a green room for a split second, and then I'll let you onto the program, and let's have us some fun. The other reason why I bring up ads is because a sign of growth for any venture in the media game is advertisers. And even though this is, an ad read is one of the least entertaining parts of a program, got to pay the bills, folks. And so real fast, let's give some love to one of the official sponsors of Golden Days, part of the Believe Network, and that's Bet Online. Bet Online is your number one source for all your sports betting needs this season, whether it's baseball, golf, soccer, fighting and UFC, MMA, boxing. We just had Wimbledon, the finals coming tomorrow. You can bet on all that with Bet Online. They've got every stat, every matchup, even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. And when the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action and make sure you use the promo code BELIEVE. It's spelled just like the network, BLEAV, for 50% free bet credit on your first deposit up to $250. Meaning if you put in $250, they'll give you $125 to play with. That's a hell of a deal. Bet Online, the game starts here. And speaking of the game, folks, and G Martinez, thank you for the positivity in the chat regarding the intro of the show. I'm going to cut out Bill O'Reilly soon. That's not going to be a permanent aspect of the intro, but the rest will stay. I hate Ewoks. Always love seeing you in the chat, and thanks for making the live show today. Bruce Morrow, I don't know what that means, but online, yes, it's online. But great to see you. Thank you. Carl Edwin Molina, writes in the chat real fast, the end of an era. After Klay Thompson leaves, whatever you say is useless. I think you're putting a little too much weight on Klay, bud. Klay is irreplaceable. There's no chance the Warriors will win another championship, no matter there is Stephen Curry. We can agree to disagree there. Klay Thompson's 0 for 10 performance in the last playoff game, 0 for 10. He scored 0 points in 32 minutes. The playoff game before that, 2 for 12 from deep. His game left him. You can replace Klay Thompson. It's not the end of the world quite yet. So, again, welcome everybody. I want to start things off by talking about Joe Lacob because I want to give some reassurance to Dub Nation. I grew up with a 49ers dynasty from my childhood on. It was my salvation. It was my grace. It was my escape from a childhood and I'm super happy if any of you had a pleasant, happy childhood. Not all of us did. The 49ers and sports in general was my escape. And it also gave me an opportunity to be a student of dynasties, of watching how a sports organization can sustain greatness. Side note, I write for Yardbarker. My first piece for them should be coming out Monday or Tuesday. And I wrote about that exact subject, about how Steve Kerr does not understand the concept of sustaining a dynasty. The verbiage, the rhetoric I constantly hear about dynasties is it's a finite concept. It ends for everyone. That is true. Everything ends at some point. But there is a formula to extend a run, to continue the greatness beyond just the window of whatever star player is carrying this thing, right? In almost every dynasty that you could look back on, from Bill Russell's Celtics, Magic's Lakers, Larry's Celtics, Shaq's Lakers, Jordan's Bulls, Duncan's Spurs, Steph's Warriors. There is one person carrying the franchise on their back, whether it's Michael Jordan, again, Magic, Bird, whether it's Shaq, Kobe almost did the same thing. But typically we define dynasties as a minimum of 3 titles, typically in a 5-year plus span. And Steph with the Warriors. But the exceptions, whether it's the 49ers in the NFL, whether it's the Spurs in the NBA from 99 to 2017, maybe even 98, the Spurs exuded greatness. They routinely won. They were consistent. But they got the 5th championship in that dynasty, not because of Duncan, but because the team adapted and passed the torch to Kawhi Leonard. The 49ers adapted, passed the torch to Steve Young. And the Golden State Warriors, unfortunately, until at least this offseason, kept holding on to the old trio. And that's why losing Klay Thompson does not mean it's over. Stephen Curry's still in his prime. I know he's 36, and I know there are some signs of regression. They're very subtle and they're very tiny, but he's not done yet. Just look at the Olympics. That's all you need to see or know for that. But the man needs help. And the reason why I feel great about Joe Lacob is because when you look at the landscape of all 4 professional sports, most owners are not committed to winning. Most owners are committed to just keeping the ride going, filling their ego, making their family members happy, trying to make money in the process, treating the sports organization more like a business than a venture that affects an entire region's emotions, attitudes, its spirit, its morale. And Joe Lacob, the similarities between him and Eddie DeBartolo are so striking. I just want to give people some optimism when it comes to the Warriors ownership. They've got an owner in Joe Lacob who wants to win. They've got an owner in Joe Lacob who refuses to be complacent and let the team get mired in a run like the Lakers did from 12 to 18, whatever it was, Kobe Bryant's final years there. That was abysmal what the Lakers went through. And Joe Lacob has come out publicly and said very clearly he doesn't want a replication of that. Now, the Warriors unfortunately have a coach who doesn't seem to grasp that concept. He wants to keep his buddies around. He wants to keep his favorites around. The guy has a clear bias when it comes to who his favorite players are, and that's very unfortunate. But the team has an owner who's committed to winning, and the evidence is there. He actually made a call for LeBron James last year. Whether or not that's a good idea, that's a whole other point. Whether or not the ideas are good, that is beside the point. The point here is the owner wants to win, and he's willing to try. He's willing to take big steps. He's willing to swing for the fences. Again, trading for LeBron, that's crazy until you watch that first Olympic game, which was an exhibition between the USA and Canada. When you saw that early play where Steph with the lob, the alley-oop to LeBron, if you saw that, you got a glimpse of what that duo could still do at the ages of 36 and 39, respectively. And the fact that Joe Lacob was trying to do that, and then we know for a fact that Joe Lacob was trying with his underling, Mike Dunleavy Jr., to get Paul George on this team. A deal that ultimately fell through, not because the Clippers and other teams have a vendetta against the Golden State Warriors. No, the Clippers just did not want to add salary back that would have put them in the second apron. And you can't blame them for that. But they tried. And what they're doing right now is they're trying to get Lauri Markkanen. And everything I know behind the scenes, and it's not a lot, folks, but pretty much on par with what Anthony Slater is reporting. But I'm feeling great about Lauri coming to the Warriors. The massive holdup in all this is Danny Ainge wants more assets. All the Warriors can offer is 2 first-rounders and a pick swap. Danny Ainge wants more, and the Warriors are trying to make it happen. They've got a toxic asset in Andrew Wiggins that is damn near impossible to move. But what the Warriors are trying to do right now is get additional draft picks so that they can make Danny Ainge happy and they can bring Lauri Markkanen to the Golden State Warriors. And Lauri Markkanen, in all likelihood, is going to be coming here without the team having to give up Jonathan Kuminga. That is music to my freaking ears. So stay positive, stay optimistic, enjoy Olympic basketball because, first of all, that is a treat. And I'm going to be coming to you live immediately after every one of these Team USA games, even though they're going to be boring as F because Team USA is that good. Team USA is stacked. I mean, Canada is one of the biggest threats to Team USA getting gold. And we saw in that game how there is no comparison. Canada is incomparable to the United States. Dylan Brooks, side note, still petty, still tacky, still scummy. I don't know if you saw him walking in front of Devin Booker in that post-game press conference. It's kind of funny, though. The guy's entertaining, but I would never want him on my team. I don't care what you say. But the point is, even with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and that stacked Team Canada roster, Team USA never fretted. They never blinked. They never worried. They took care of business. The only team out there internationally that poses even the most minuscule of threats to Team USA is France, because they're going to have a twin tower lineup of Gobert and Wemby. But this Team USA team is going to counter that with Embiid and Anthony Davis. They're going to be fine. And so will the Warriors. I'm not sitting here saying they're going to win the title next year. My personal agenda, my personal desire is Stephen Curry having a 5th ring because he's that special of a player. He's that amazing of a player. And I care about his legacy. I care about the Stephen Curry discussions 30 years from now. And there is a colossal difference between him winning 4 and 5. And that is my selfish agenda and all the rhetoric that I spew when it comes to the Warriors. I'm pro Steph, but for damn good reason. He's one of the all-time greats. He's special. He's transcendent. You name it. And the Warriors, I'm confident they're going to get Lauri Markkanen. The holdup is the Warriors don't have enough picks. Now, over on the Disney network, a.k.a. ESPN, that's who their parent company is Disney. 2 of their reporters had a discussion about the Lauri Markkanen trade. They were talking about Lauri's value. They were talking about what the Warriors might have to give up. They talked about how the one team out there that poses a bigger threat than the Warriors to get Lauri Markkanen are the San Antonio Spurs because they have considerable more assets to offer Utah to get him. But we also don't know if the Spurs actually want him. We do know the Warriors desperately want him. And why don't we hear that discussion real fast? This is about 2 minutes in length. This is Zach Lowe and Tim McMahon of ESPN talking about the value of Lauri Markkanen, who they think Danny Ainge will want the Warriors to give up besides draft picks. That part I felt was the most interesting in this brief discussion, and about what the Spurs have to offer. So let's hear what Zach Lowe and Tim McMahon have to say.
Deal from Markkanen that leaves enough in the cupboard where you can look at your team and think the price we have paid in future assets, in youth, in picks is worth it because A, Markkanen is 27, so he's going to be here a long time. And B, we have enough to actually make a deep playoff run right now. And so I would put it like this. Well, I'll just phrase that question to you open-ended. You go ahead.
Educated speculation. I think Podziemski would have to be in the deal. Obviously, you're talking about a ton of picks. I don't know how much the Jazz would press on Kuminga. I do think, like, if Podziemski's not in the deal, there wouldn't be a deal.
So Podziemski and 3 to 4 Warriors first-round picks and swaps, unprotected, betting against the Warriors going forward with Steph aging and Markkanen as the guy, and Draymond aging as well. And as I've said about the Lakers picks, people just say, well, 2 first-round picks, 2 whatever. Like, if they're unprotected, those picks from an old team, I don't care that they're in a big market that's got free agency interest before. Like, those are valuable pieces. I put it like this. The question that's for me is, I think some team could beat Podziemski in picks. Podziemski plus filler plus picks.
Well, and what we don't know, or at least I don't know, is what is San Antonio's appetite to take a big swing right now? Because I tell you what, man, Markkanen next to Wemby, you could talk me into the Spurs getting pretty good pretty soon.
Yeah, they've been my favorite Markkanen team for a while now. But
and they've have extra picks, a lot of extra picks, including 2 Hawks unprotected and an unprotected Hawks swap. Like, they've got some high value picks as well. If San Antonio wants to really take a swing, and it's hey, we're going to move Markkanen to the highest bidder, which I shouldn't say that. The bidding is high enough that we're going to make a decision and move them to the highest bidder. If San Antonio wants to pull it off, I think the Spurs absolutely could pull it off. Again, I don't know what what the Spurs have done this summer has been a very patient approach. Even adding draft capital down the road.
Which they could trade too, like those swaps in 2030 and 2031. Dallas, Minnesota, Boston, there's another one I'm forgetting. Like, those are valuable.
Yeah. Who else did they just do? Sacramento.
That's right.
And they got Barnes is a very tradable contract. CP3 obviously is a tradable contract. I mean, he's not going to play in Utah, but Keldon Johnson's a tradable. Like, if the Spurs want to take a huge swing, they absolutely can. But I like what they've done in the sense of they've kept their trade powder dry while putting a couple vets who will be great for the young guys on that team and help them field a competitive, structured, organized team this year. Well, not only keeping the trade powder dry, but adding to it. So again, I don't know what the Spurs' appetite is for trying to make a not just a win now move, but a win for a while move this early. But if they wanted to, they could.
So there you go. That's what the 2 gentlemen over at ESPN think about it. Interesting take that the Jazz, if there's one player on the roster that they do want, it's going to be Brandon Podziemski. I don't like the idea of trading him, but for Lauri Markkanen, sign me up. Someone in the chat asked whether or not the deal, a hypothetical deal for Lauri Markkanen would involve a sign and trade. It would have to. And then the likelihood is sign and trade, and then the Warriors give Lauri a contract extension to keep him with the team long term. Now, Anthony Slater of NBC Sports Bay Area, and Anthony Slater of The Athletic, thank you to myself, said or interviewed Mike Dunleavy Jr. and they talked about, and this is where the focus is going to shift a little bit to Mike Dunleavy Jr. himself. And by the way, again, if you want to jump on the program today, I did post the link in the chat. Would welcome your input, your insights. If anyone is interested, just click on that link and sit in the green room for a moment before I let you in. So this offseason now, again, if they don't get Lauri, if this roster ends up being what it is without one more big move coming, at least one more big move, the Warriors are not a good team. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing the youngsters develop. I wouldn't mind seeing the focus on the future, heavy Podziemski minutes, heavy Moses Moody minutes, heavy Kuminga minutes. I think Trayce Jackson-Davis is going to get heavy minutes regardless of what happens. But the decision by the front office to spend all of their available money on DeAnthony Melton, on Kyle Anderson, and on Buddy Hield is weird. And when you look at some of the other contracts that were offered to some other free agents out there, it's straight up disappointing. There were better options out there, and I'll get into what I mean by that in just a moment. But Mike Dunleavy Jr. was asked by Anthony Slater about the addition of those three players, and I'm going to present to you three other players that I think the Warriors should have pursued instead. And again, irrelevant if Lauri Markkanen ends up being with the Warriors, but as currently constructed, the Warriors are a Stephen Curry injury away from legitimately being in the Cooper Flag hunt. On one hand, interesting. On the other hand, it's another 2020. Is that what you want? Would you be excited for that? Worst, what if you get into the Cooper Flag sweepstakes and lose? I mean, this is the one thing with sports franchises that drives me up the wall is their limitless patience, their ability to just pretend that an entire season, which is on the calendar 6 months, really it's a year, that is no big deal. The utter thoughtlessness in terms of the paying customers to think, oh, it's just a year. That's a fraction of our lives we're talking about that you're willing to sacrifice just because you didn't want to put much thought into this roster, into the future. And I'll explain what I mean in terms of the additions of Buddy Hield, Kyle Anderson, DeAnthony Melton. Because, again, on paper, to sign those three over three much superior alternatives is asinine. And I'll explain what I mean in just a minute. But here's Dunleavy Jr. He was interviewed by Anthony Slater, and he talked about the addition of those three guys. Let's hear what Dunleavy Jr. had to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think with all those guys, first and foremost, just good basketball players. They have certain skill sets that we were looking for. Buddy with his shooting, DeAnthony with his shooting and his defense. I think Kyle was a guy just who we recognize as a really good player. He ended up being on the board a couple days in. It was like, man, we have an opportunity to get a player like this, grab him. And he was all in on board. And I think when you add good basketball players to a mix, I think we have confidence in them being able to figure it out. Steve lead them in with what we already have. We just felt at the end of the day to grab three guys that are like experienced, can play, know how to play, can play both ends. Got to do it.
You did add Buddy, but obviously you lost Clay. Shooting was something you guys did identify going into the summer. I mean, how do you feel about the shooting on this team, and do you see a weakness on this team?
Yeah, I mean, I think from the shooting standpoint, adding Buddy really helps with losing Clay. But on top of it, I think there's room for others to step up. And that's where, in terms of like volume and accuracy, we need guys shooting three more. That can be internal. Certainly with Moses, with Wiggs, with BP, JK, all those guys I think can make shots, and they'll have to, we'll have to improve our three-point shooting as a team. I would have said with Clay back, anyway we would have to, right? With Clay and Steph, there's just a high volume of threes those guys produce, and then everybody else was a little bit lower. I'd like to get that up with everybody else being a little bit more even, and just being more threats from outside. But I think we can do that, but at the same time, we'll always look to improve and add more.
All right, so that was just a whole lot of nothing right there in terms of these three players. And Han Solo Dolo, I strongly disagree with you that Lauri Markkanen is a pipe dream. You must have missed the beginning of the show where I explained in detail what's taking so long to make this trade a reality is Danny Ainge's desire to have more than the 3 first-round picks or the 2 first-round picks and a pick swap that the Warriors could currently offer. And the Warriors are out there hunting for more picks. And with Andrew Wiggins, possibly Kevon Looney, Gary Payton II. We just heard from Tim McMahon and Zach Lowe about how Utah really wants Brandon Podziemski. Maybe he supplants one of the 4 or 5 picks that Danny Ainge wants. But the point is, it's not a pipe dream. As I discussed a few days ago with Damon Bruce, Lauri Markkanen is not exactly the perfect player for the Utah Jazz, given he's turning 28. Given he has this massively huge contract coming up, and given the fact that Lauri Markkanen alone does not automatically change the fortunes of your team. He cannot be the number 1 option for your team to be even a playoff contender. We've seen that. We just saw that. He also has durability issues. And here I am dinging him while at the same time saying he's the difference for this team to possibly be a contender next year. But again, he's not as special to Utah as you may think. Danny Ainge will happily trade him. He just wants a boatload of picks, and that's what the Warriors are currently gunning for. Now, the problem with the 3 free agents the Warriors signed is twofold. One is none of them is a reliable second option to relieve the pressure that's going to be on Stephen Curry this year. The Warriors still have not solved that part of it. They didn't even solve it last year. They put the impetus of the scoring pressure alongside Stephen Curry on Klay Thompson. He did not deliver. Klay's gone, lost him for nothing. And none of these 3 players they got back are volume scorers. And so this current roster has a lot of issues. And the reason why I'm a little perturbed about who they got. Let me read off real quick some of the negatives about these 3 players that they signed, right? Kyle Anderson. He gives you size. He supposedly has basketball IQ, solid defender. He also shot 22.9% from deep last year. He also only averaged 6.4 points per game last year. He's a role player. DeAnthony Melton. Do you realize in the 38 games he played last year, and it's worth noting he missed over half the season with a back injury. That's concerning. The Warriors gave him the mid-level exception, the entirety of it, nearly $13 million for a player who shot 36% from deep last year. He only shot 38.6% from the field. Let me read that to you one more time. As his field goal percentage last year, DeAnthony Melton was 38.6%. He only played in 38 games. And then Buddy Hield, widely considered one of the best shooters in the NBA. Let's hope last year was just an off year, because last year he shot 38.6% from deep. That is nothing to write home about. Now, who could the Warriors have gotten instead of those 3? They could have gotten Jalen Smith, who's young, who's 6'9", who was signed for less money than any of those 3 players. Jalen Smith signed a 3-year, $27 million contract. That annual payment is less than Kyle Anderson. It's way less than DeAnthony Melton, and it's less than Buddy Hield. Jalen Smith would have given you, based off last year's stats, which we can count on improving, given he's a young player who's turning his career around. Dude he only played in 17.1 minutes per game. Okay, that's a really low amount. Yet in those 17 minutes, he averaged 10 points per game, 5.5 rebounds per game. Oh, and he shot 42.4% from deep. Jalen Smith at 6'9" would have been a stretch big. But no, according to Mike Dunleavy Jr., not good enough. And what I've heard behind the scenes about Mike Dunleavy Jr. is A, he thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. And B, when he has his eyes set on a player, he gets narrow-minded about it. Like supposedly, from what I've heard with my inside sources, is Mike Dunleavy Jr., when he has a favorite, it's almost like he forgets about everyone else. And the focus is entirely on him. And that's supposedly what the thinking was with D'Anthony Melton, that he became obsessed with him from 2 years ago when the Warriors and Grizzlies played in the playoffs and wanted him ever since, and now had a chance. But instead of Jalen Smith, instead of Josh Okogie, whose only guaranteed money is next year at $7.7 million. Now, Josh Okogie, I'm not going to sit here and list off his stats because they're nothing to write home about, but neither were Kyle Anderson's, right? You signed Kyle Anderson for the same reason you would have signed Josh Okogie, the intangibles, the defense. He's probably bringing you more toughness than Kyle Anderson. He's younger than Kyle Anderson. He's cheaper than Kyle Anderson. He's a better defender than Kyle Anderson. I can't think of how many games in the last 2 years that Josh Okogie burned the Warriors on both sides of the ball. The Warriors had every opportunity to steal him from Phoenix and just ignore that intuition. And by the way, the episode, I'm sorry for the delay, of speaking of intuition, of Steve Kerr's gut, that's next. That is going to be next week. I'm going to finally do a whole episode on that because I'm almost going to write a story about that. And again, the headline, the title for that episode / story, where Steve Kerr's gut has gone wrong. Because, as Steve Kerr revealed in a story this last year to Sam Gordon of the San Francisco Chronicle, who I'm hoping to get back on the show soon, that's how Steve Kerr makes his decisions, with his gut, not with logic and reasoning, with his gut. Is that true, by the way, that someone tried to shoot one of the presidential candidates? If that's true, this is a sports show. I'm not going to get political. And again, sometimes people come to chat and make up shit. So I'm not, but if that's true, that is kind of crazy. Oh, wow. Oh, whatever. Well, this is a sports show. So is he fine? Is he fine? I mean, Tristan97 writing that the okay, so his gunshots heard at a rally. Okay, that's not even news. Okay, going back to sports. Now, and then the third player that the Warriors could have gotten instead of, let's say, Buddy Hield or D'Anthony Melton or Kyle Anderson, Saddiq Bey was out there. Saddiq Bey, who the Warriors, for the briefest of moments, actually had possession of in that 4-team trade last year where they got Gary Payton II back, giving up James Wiseman, giving up a bunch of second-round picks. They could have had Saddiq Bey. Saddiq Bey is a stretch 4. Saddiq Bey is physical. He's young. He did have an ACL tear, but he's going to be playing this season at some point. Saddiq Bey was signed for 3 years, $19 million. And the Warriors just went, I'm trying to make a good noise just a scoffing noise. So that's who the Warriors could have had. They could have signed, and this would have been an offseason that I personally would have raved home about. They could have had Jalen Smith. They could have had Josh Okogie. They could have had Saddiq Bey. Would have made them a bigger team. Would have made them a more physical team. And the only thing you're not getting is Buddy Hield's shooting. But you're improving so much defensively. And I'm sorry, but if shooting was that important, there are other shooters out there. There's still free agents. Bertans is still out there. The dude can shoot. He's no different than Buddy Hield. He's just a guy who could shoot threes and not do much else. So that part of it disappoints me. And again, as I mentioned before, Saddiq Bey, tore his ACL in March. ACL injuries can take 6 months to a year to come back from, even if you don't get him right away. De'Anthony Melton, who cost twice the amount, missed over half of last season with a back injury, but he's worth $13 million a season. So that part of it was disappointing. Now, before I move on from Dunleavy Jr. and this offseason, which is going to be a disaster unless one more big move happens, which I'm confident about, but I can't sit here and promise you anything because who can, right? I mean, Danny Ainge still has to ultimately approve it. We don't know exactly what the mechanisms are behind the scenes of what Ainge wants, what the Warriors have offered, what the Warriors are working on. But what we do know is Joe Lacob wants to win. We do know Joe Lacob swings big. We do know Lauri Markkanen is not the perfect fit for a Danny Ainge rebuild. We do know the Warriors are interested. And as of right now, it would not surprise me if what the Warriors are working on is trying to figure out what they can get back for Andrew Wiggins, who we also know the team wants to trade and was going to be part of that trade to get Paul George back. So just the patience part of it, it's a lot to ask. My patience is running thin. I'm not a very patient person to begin with myself, but I have confidence in Joe. Not as much Mike Dunleavy Jr., but I have confidence in Joe, an owner who wants to win, an owner who takes action, and that's more than what you could say about 90% of the sports owners out there. Now, the legend himself, Stephen Curry. And side note, by the way, Hansel Odolo in the chat saying, De'Anthony Melton is a beast. He's way better than Pods. That's a bold statement, dude, because De'Anthony Melton is, again, not a great shooter. He's better defensively than Pods, not offensively. So that's a bold statement. We'll see. And then, and I think Steve Kerr, in case you're wondering, someone asked, it can, yeah, Eddie757, thank you for the love there, man. I always forget about that the likes and all the weird algorithm gimmicky stuff that helps. Please subscribe. Please hit that like button. Thank you so much, Eddie757, for the reminder. And that number usually juices up because most people aren't actually watching the live version. They watch the recorded version. But I digress. So I want to hear from, I want to play sound from Mike Dunleavy Jr. one more time. And this is oh, by the way, Wally De Rosario, right? So the Warriors, are they still under the cap, and can they sign one more free agent for the veteran minimum? As of right now, my understanding is no. There's conflicting reports out there. One report says they're $500,000 under. Another says they're actually over it right now. They're back in the repeater tax territory. Although I don't know how that could even be possible when they're hard capped. But the CBA is so damn complex. I can only report for certain what I do know. Regardless, at this present point in time, no. They'd have to either cut somebody to sign someone else, which is why I still think there's another deal coming. And again, Hansel Odolo, who writes, De'Anthony Melton was cooking the Warriors in 2022. As I mentioned, that is what got the teams, or what made the team fall in love with De'Anthony Melton, was what he did in the same time frame that Andrew Wiggins was still an actually good, dominant player you could rely on, not the Wiggins of now. A lot changes in 2 years. Don't forget that. But there's another topic regarding Stephen Curry and Mike Dunleavy Jr., and that's Stephen Curry's contract extension. I want to read you something. I have a few people in that building and around the building who give me information, which I can then convey and relay on this show and, give you some inside stuff that no one else can offer. One of those sources, I'm going to read you what he wrote to me verbatim. Quote, Steph is retiring at the end of this contract. I bet my salary on that. Now, why do I bring that up? Because Stephen Curry has 2 years remaining on his current deal. because of the CBA and because of Steph's age, he's eligible for a 1-year contract extension for max dollars. And here is what Mike Dunleavy Jr., he was asked about that. And here is what Mike Dunleavy Jr. had to say about Stephen Curry signing a contract extension, being a Warrior for life. Here's MDJ.
Steph extension eligible as well, right? Have there been any discussions there?
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about that too. I mean, look, man, that guy, kind of whatever he wants. So we'll get through all that stuff. It's been a sprint here, getting through the draft and free agency and summer league and all that. But all that stuff will get figured out, and I think stuff will be, I think I say pretty confidently he'll be a Warrior for life.
Now, being a Warrior for life does not mean him playing beyond the end of this contract. And again, I just read to you verbatim what my source texted me. One more time, I'll read it to you. Quote, Steph is retiring at the end of this contract. I'd bet my salary on that. So these could be the last 2 years of Stephen Curry's playing career. And this is where the impetus is on the Warriors to surround him with the talent to give him just a shot at getting that 5th title. Blimey Menard asking, how am I talking about basketball at a time like this? What's going on here? I heard there was a shot fired in the air at a presidential candidate's event. I mean, no one got shot, right? I look, if someone's dead of that magnitude, okay, I get it, but no one's hurt, right? Okay, so we'll move on. Unless someone could correct me. So the point is, if you don't see Stephen Curry sign that extension, be prepared for these being the last 2 years of his career. Steph is not the type of guy who necessarily, first of all, he has nothing left to prove, right? His legacy's cemented in stone. The only thing left that's preventing him from getting the EGOT of sports, EGOT, a term referring to the acting, artistically performing scene, right? It refers to Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, Tony. Handful of individuals have won that. Okay, sorry. Okay, I see. Okay, so Blimey, you were just joking around. I apologize for missing the sarcasm there. But the point is, so these might be Steph's last 2 years. Surround him with people that can help. All right, and I don't think it's lost on the Warriors that for these last 2 years, a player like Lauri Markkanen could be the difference maker. I'm feeling good about that. Okay, I am. I'm feeling good. Despite the lapse of time, I'm confident Lauri's coming to the Warriors. I really am. For what that's worth. I want to mention Team USA real fast before we wrap it up. Team USA, the Olympics. Oh, and Tristan97 asking in the chat, how do I think Bob Myers would have handled this free agency? Great question. He was a master at free agency. For all the critics of Bob Myers, never forget Andre Iguodala. Never forget David West, Jaja Pachulia, Kevin Durant. Trading Kevin Durant for initially D'Angelo Russell, panic buttons. D'Angelo Russell is swapped for Andrew Wiggins and Jonathan Kuminga. Blaring sirens turned to a championship parade. He was brilliant at this. Nemanja Bjelica, a perfect fit for that time frame. So how would he handle this? I think he would have done better than DeAnthony Melton. And again, don't forget he left because of the war with Steve Kerr. And yeah, Eddie 57, absolutely right. Steph has nothing left to accomplish. So if he doesn't sign that extension, cherish these final potentially 2 years. I mean, this might be it for Stephen Curry. He loves his family. He has a million other things going on. There just is not a lot of point to him playing beyond the age of 38. He would turn 39 if he signed an extension by the end of that contract. I mean, what's the point? And this leads to Team USA. I briefly touched on this at the beginning of the show, and I'll repeat it one more time. This team is stacked. How awesome is it, by the way, that we're watching this level of basketball in July? I'm stoked. I'm going to be going live after every one of these episodes. And I'm going to be live after every one of these games in the Summer Olympics. Super pumped for that. But don't expect close games, folks. This team is so good. Have to love Anthony Edwards going out there saying I'm the first option already. I dig the swagger on that kid. Is there anything else? No one wanted to come on today. All right. We'll do this again soon. Monday is another episode of NBA Coast to Coast. Casey Stern's going to join me. I've got a new a story coming out for Yard Barker. I'm going to be pumping that up, especially on my social media accounts. Follow me on social media. Speaking of which, I'm on Threads. I'm on Instagram at Dog Wild. And I'm over on the other platform too at Surf Journalist. Portola45 asking, am I going live after tonight? No, Summer League's a different beast. And Hansel Odolo, I think you're absolutely right. Steph is the real leader of Team USA. Yeah, no question about that. Thank you, sir. Damien. I love Casey Stern, man. I consider myself so lucky that our paths crossed the way they did, that we discovered each other, that we're now hosting shows together. I'm stoked, man. Chemistry to me is everything when it comes to broadcast. So, all right, I think that's it. Hope everyone has a great weekend. If you live in Northern California, congrats on this heat wave, at least just tempering down a little bit, man. That was brutal. That was quite possibly the hottest 2 weeks in Northern California in human history. Yeah, I agree, Eddie, that if he gets a gold medal, Steph's career is complete. He's got the EGOT. Yeah, he's got the EGOT of sports. Gold medals, like unanimous MVP, championships, finals MVP, scoring title. Well, Damien, 115 in Vegas. When is Vegas not hot this time of year? Isn't that like normal? Isn't that the average? And Hansel Odolo, I'm with you, man. That is my one agenda. Hansel Odolo writes he wants Steph to get 5. That's what I want, because it's the difference between 4 and 5. First of all, you're now above LeBron in the ring count, which does mean a lot when you're the alpha dog for a team. And but Steph is on the Mount Rushmore of all-time greats if he gets a 5th title. Am I selfish in wanting that? Yeah. Do I give a F? No. Have a great weekend, everyone. We'll be back at this Monday. Again, if the Lauri news drops, if any big news drops, I'm going live immediately. Otherwise, again, subscribe, please. Hit the like button, please. Have a great weekend. Enjoy life. It's short. Make it sweet. Back at this soon. Thank you, everyone, again. Bye-bye.